Today, we're going to be examining the foundational chapter of American history, one that spans from the late 15th century to the mid 18th century, a time defined by exploration, colonization, and the competing ambitions of four major European powers: Spain, France, the Netherlands, and Britain. Let's get started. From 1491 to 1607, the story of European involvement in the Americas was dominated by exploration, chiefly led by the Spanish. They aggressively colonized Central and South America, driven by the dual motives of wealth and the spread of Roman Catholicism. But in North America, things moved a bit more slowly. Then, between 1607 and 1754, we begin to see a shift. Exploration gave way to colonization as European powers planted permanent settlements on the continent. Each nation pursued distinct goals, which shaped the development of their respective colonies. These efforts came in rapid succession. In 1607, the English founded Jamestown in Virginia. A year later, in 1608, the French established Quebec. By 1609, the Dutch claimed what is now New York. And in 1610, the Spanish established Santa Fe, the capital of New Mexico. As we'll see, the comparable and contrasting goals of these powers deeply influenced the shape of their colonial projects and ultimately the course of American history. Let's start with Spain. While the Spanish had already asserted dominance in Central and South America, their colonization of North America moved at a much slower pace. Their goals, however, remained consistent: the pursuit of wealth and the spread of Catholicism. In North America, Roman Catholic missionaries worked to counter the rising tide of Protestantism, especially as other European nations entered the colonial race. Interestingly, the first permanent Spanish settlement in North America wasn't Santa Fe, but St. Augustine, Florida, founded way back in 1565, more than 50 years before Jamestown. Yet, despite its early establishment, Spanish Florida remained thinly populated. Why? Well, gold and silver were in short supply in the region. It wasn't until 1610 that Spain established Santa Fe, the capital of New Mexico. This marked the beginning of Spanish settlement in what is now known as the American Southwest. By the early 1700s, they had expanded further, developing settlements in what is now Texas. Most Spanish colonists were men, and this shaped the social structure of their colonies. Intermarriage with Native American women was common, leading to the development of the casta system, a complex social hierarchy based on racial heritage. The Spanish colonial system was also defined by the encomienda system, which granted colonists the right to extract labor from Native Americans, and combined that with the missionary efforts. This system reflected Spain's intertwined economic and religious motives. Now let's shift to France. In 1608, the French explorer Samuel de Champlain, often called the father of New France, founded Quebec. Like the Spanish, most early French colonists were men, but there were far fewer of them. In fact, 2 decades after Quebec's founding, there were only about 200 French colonists in the entire New World. French goals in the Americas were twofold. Some came to convert Native Americans to Christianity, while others were drawn by the lucrative fur trade. Unlike the Spanish and the British, the French forged particularly close ties with the Native Americans. They developed strong trade relationships, especially in fur, and often formed alliances through intermarriage with American Indian women. Over time, French explorers began to map the Mississippi River. One of them, Robert de La Salle, reached the Mississippi River basin in 1682. He claimed the region for France, naming it Louisiana in honor of King Louis XIV. Then in 1718, the French founded New Orleans, which quickly became an important trade center in the French colonial network. The Dutch entered the scene a bit differently. In the 1600s, the Netherlands was focused on trade and exploration. In 1609, an Englishman sailing for the Dutch by the name of Henry Hudson entered New York Harbor while searching for a northwest passage to Asia. His voyage established Dutch claims to the region, leading to the founding of New Amsterdam, what we now know as New York City. Like the French, the Dutch aimed to develop trade, not large settlements. Dutch colonists were relatively few in number and focused on building trade networks with the Native Americans. They were also less likely than the French to intermarry with indigenous peoples. However, one thing that set the Dutch apart was their tolerance. New Amsterdam was the most religiously and ethnically diverse colony in North America. But this diversity didn't translate into rapid growth. In fact, the Dutch failed to attract settlers in numbers large enough to compete with the booming English population to the south and north. That brings us to the British. In the 16th century, England was not yet a dominant power. Internal conflict, especially because of the Protestant Reformation under King Henry VIII, had weakened the country. But when Elizabeth I took the throne in 1558, things changed. England began to participate more actively in overseas exploration. After a failed attempt at colonization in Roanoke in 1587, the English finally succeeded with the founding of Jamestown in 1607. 13 years later, in 1620, the Pilgrims established Plymouth Colony. The English had multiple motives for colonization. The Protestant government sought to limit Spain's Catholic influence. Meanwhile, colonists themselves came in search of profit, religious freedom, and social mobility. And unlike the other European powers, England sent far more settlers and more families. By 1650, the population of the English colonies had reached 50,000, dwarfing the French, Dutch, and Spanish populations in North America. This demographic reality had major consequences. The English were more focused on farming and less on intermarriage with natives. As English populations expanded, they required more land, which led to growing conflict with Native American tribes. The English colonies quickly became centers of contention and competition, both with indigenous peoples and with rival European powers. From Spanish missions in New Mexico to French fur traders along the Mississippi to the tolerant Dutch trading posts and the booming English agricultural settlements, each European power brought its own goals, methods, and legacies to the Americas. The choices they made during this pivotal period between 1607 and 1754 shaped not only their colonies, but the future of what will become the United States. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you next time.